Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm running on fumes a little bit this morning, as usual on Sundays, after my Saturday night bartending shift. But I have had 2 cups of coffee and might as well be 12 cups of coffee because I'm ready to talk about my Kansas City Chiefs coming off of a Super Bowl victory. I cannot, I've been bragging about it all week. If you've seen me on Twitter, I'm sure I've been a little bit unbearable, but that's okay. I'm riding high. I'm on cloud 9 right now. We'll dive into it. Justin Bruni, SGPN's finest, is joining me this morning. We're here to talk about Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to be diving into some Dynasty sleepers as well. How you doing this morning, Justin?
I'm doing good. I am on 1 round of energy drink so far. Don't quite have the multiple cups of Joe in just yet, but I'm feeling good. It's Sunday, no NFL action, but we're here ready to talk some football, talk some fantasy, dive into a little bit of a dynasty conversation. I'm very excited.
I don't understand. Like, my goodness, your body must hate you. Like, instead of just like a coffee, it's energy drinks and Slim Jims in the morning. My goodness.
Yes, Slim Jim rapper.
Oh, no. I was hoping that was just like a one-time thing, and I was just going to be like, you can laugh at me like, oh, that was just one time, man.
No, it's all about the Tabasco flavored Slim Jims, and it's just you are what you eat. I'm an agent of habit. I've been rocking.
That's not good.
It's not good, but as I mentioned in the Slack channel, it's time for the SGPN crew to start turning the healthy corner, the healthy part of 2023. I know, we're well reprieved from like the New Year's resolution because now we're getting closer to the Fantasy Football Expo, and we all got to gear up and get our inner athlete, blooming on the outside for the flag football tournament. Pretty excited about it. I don't know about you, but we're going to be dialing it in.
Oh, man, I'm in trouble. I was an offensive lineman in high school. I've since dropped 40 pounds, and I'm a much lighter man. It was 4A, okay? I could afford to be 5'8" and 190 pounds and be an offensive lineman. But now
they wouldn't let you play running back?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what I'm going to convert to at the expo, so that'll be fun. But before we dive into everything, I want to tell you about WynnBET really quick. The SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-day parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today, bet $100, and get $100 at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. State restrictions apply. We're also brought to you by the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. They start your engines with Rod and Cody and get ready to gamble on the Daytona 500 this Sunday. I know that's their kind of Super Bowl over there on the NASCAR side. So, check that out for this weekend. But yeah, with that, we will dive into the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles. It was a crazy game, full of emotions. I thought it was over at about before halftime. Watching Mahomes barely walk off the field was very emotional to me. I won't lie. I thought like, oh my God, it's over. It's over already.
Come on. We were in good hands. You knew that he was going to be rocking the perks all night long. Whatever they gave him was going to be keeping him up well till 3 or 4 in the morning. I was never in doubt whatsoever. And I called it on our preview show. Eagles first half. KC comeback. It's going to happen. I hit a ton of props in that game, had Kansas City money line in all of them. It was a great Super Bowl for me. I mean, even better for you. I mean, you're just a fan. I mean, I saw the Twitter content. I saw the cigars in the hot tub. I was loving the vibes, believe me.
Yeah, whiskey in the hot tub. We drinking the fine stuff that night. Drinking the $300 bottle that I got, for the special occasions.
Yeah, that is cigars. How you do it, brother. That is how you do it.
Hung out at my dad's a little extra time and hung out in the hot tub. So yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed myself. It was a stressful game though. I didn't enjoy myself until the very end, really. And it just felt like we got the monkey off our back. People were kind of dogging on us. I had my Patriots roommate telling me, he's Patrick Mahomes is Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? Until he does it. So then it's over. We got 2. So now it's just gravy from here on out. We're just going to be in titles. We're going to be collecting. It's just gravy icing from here on out. But yeah, it was an impressive, impressive game by both quarterbacks. In the first half, Mahomes was barely on the field. Jalen Hurts was barely on the field in the second half. We really dialed it in though. Could Sky Moore making that huge punt return at the end of the game. And just the success that the Chiefs offense had with literally throwing to no outside wide receivers was very impressive as well. what were some of your thoughts on the game? Who you thought had the, some big plays, some standouts, anything like that?
I was just super happy the way that it started. Jalen Hurts, anytime touchdown, cash. Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown, cash. AJ Brown, anytime touchdown, cash. Just like the first 3 touchdowns, cash. I didn't do so good on the coin flip. I missed out on that, but I guess I'll take that L for 3 straight touchdown dubs. I mean, the Super Bowl went, how I thought it was going to go, like I said. So I was pretty happy with it. As far as like performances went, I mean, I thought Devontae Smith played really well. I thought he showed up. For Kansas City, I just Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, they're just doing their thing year in and year out. Super big trust there between those two.
Yeah, and Patrick Mahomes, man, I know he does. I don't think he gets enough credit for his toughness because he has a high voice. So he has kind of like a higher, he doesn't have like a big manly voice.
Mahomes, the quarterback here.
Yeah, so I think people don't give him credit for being really tough, but that's what he is. He may sound what he sounds like, but you need to be seeing that's a cowboy with a deep musky voice who's been smoking cigarettes for 30 years. That's how tough he is. That's what Patrick Mahomes. Okay, this man is steel. Okay, I did not think he was going to go back in after he was after he swings off his helmet. He's just I thought it was over. I was like, oh my God, he's not going to go. It's just going to be just like this. We're going to see Chad Henne for a few plays. Oh man. But
one game, 2 quarters. I mean, I trusted all the way. You know what I mean? It would be hard for me to see them not rolling him out there unless he can literally not move, I'd still put him out there.
The man, the myth, the legend himself, He is my Lord and Savior, Patrick Mahomes. So
yeah. Hey, believe me, if we had a brighter staff over in Chicago, he would have been mine too.
Oh man, you know what? I'm glad you say that because I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear any more that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have lifted Chicago Bears. Oh, it wouldn't have been the same with Chicago. I think he absolutely would have.
It would have, honestly, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to dog Kansas City. I think it would have been more impactful around the league because of how bad the Bears were. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You guys have had some successes, and not necessarily playoff successes, but there's been good players. There's been kind of high, flashy moments, kind of rolling through the Alex Smith, Jamal Charles, Priest Holmes, even dare I say, right? You've had some bright moments, right? And it just always kind of felt like with Chicago, it's just turd season. Oh, Jay Cutler's here. Great. This is going to get so much better, right?
Rex Grossman Super Bowl. Rex Grossman Super Bowl.
I'm not sure if you know about this, but I think Kyle Orton, down the stretch of the season, he played the majority of games. Rex Grossman came back that season in the NFC Championship game, or maybe it was the week before, and they just gave him oh, hey, we've been awesome without you. Here you go, bud. Here you are. Here are the reins. Do as you will. I mean, we always dog the Bears because they didn't draft Mahomes. Obviously, for the next 30 years, it's not the right pick. But that first season with Mitch, they about made it to the Super Bowl. I mean, we were right there. Now, I'm not saying that that was the right thing to do. Obviously, it was wrong. We had a moment right there and in time, right? We get to those opportunities against the Packers in the NFC Championship, against the Eagles, and something always happens. We just got to get over the hump. And Mahomes would be the guy to get us over the hump year after year after year. Mitch and Nagy had a moment. Tariq Cohen had a moment, that season. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, your guy, that kicker, that kick, those kicker woes. Yeah, those, I imagine it's tough to be a Chicago fan. Although in Kansas City, my goodness, Harrison Butker was trying his hardest to lose it for us at the end of the season there. So
that's true. That's true.
I thought he was one of the best kickers in the NFL prior to this year, but I might be interested in a change this year. But we'll dive into some Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles offseason stuff. There's a lot of in the Kansas City side particularly, there is could be a lot of changes for especially for the fantasy football landscape.
Right.
The wide receivers this year were not and Juju Smith-Schuster had his. It was like projects. Patrick Mahomes said before. Yeah, it was like Patrick Mahomes said before the year. It was a different man every week. Juju Smith-Schuster had his moments. Kadarius Toney had his moments. Sky Moore had a moment or two. But for the most part, I'm sure that is going to be the hole that the Chiefs look to fill this offseason. It'll, just like they addressed the offensive line after the Super Bowl loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right. I'm sure that they're going to look at this season and be like, man, we need to get better at the wide receiver position. So It's really hard. It's impossible to say exactly, who are the Chiefs going to have available in the draft? Who are they going to sign in free agency or trade? That's impossible. It's just guessing games. But, do you see any players, do you see Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney, maybe Juju Smith-Schuster coming back? Do you see any of these guys making an impact on the offense? Or are they more dependent on who the Chiefs bring in?
I think that Juju could come back. It's going to have to be a team-friendly deal. I think based off of their contracts, Kadarius Toney's going to be there. Sky Moore's going to be there. So they're just coming back. Between the two, I like the upside for Kadarius Toney a little bit more, just long-term. We saw some good stuff out of him in New York. Sky Moore still feels like kind of like a project for them. And I feel that both of them could still be second or third fiddle after a big signing or trade in free agency, like you had mentioned. Again, tough to predict. Or if they were to draft someone like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, if they like move up the board or they get aggressive, with someone that they like in the draft, I feel like, those two guys could still again be kind of grasping for touches early on in the season. They feel more like utility type of players. Again, guys like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, where, you can Swiss Army knife them, throw them anywhere in the field, let them stretch open the field, let them be that type of gadget type play where, they get an end around reverse or, get a carry out of the backfield. Even we've seen that before. The team definitely needs, an upgraded wide receiver and running back as well. And I feel like they are going to address those. Honestly, I feel like they're going to do more free agency or potentially like a offseason trade for some of these names that we've been hearing, like, maybe a Michael Thomas or Keenan Allen could be a cap casualty. DeAndre Hopkins is now available. He could be on the move. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins would love to come to Kansas City, but now that they've taken away his no trade clause, he doesn't have a say in where he's actually going to go. So the likelihood that he lands in a location like Kansas City or, dare I say, the Bills or something like that, I think is a little bit more good, or should be more downplayed at this point, because now every team is on the table, I should say. I see them doing exactly that. I would assume that they're going to continue to be in win now mode, and they're probably going to get somebody in the offseason that they're going to prioritize over these other guys like Toney, Sky Moore. I think MVS will probably be a cap casualty. Do you think he's worth bringing back at his, was it $7 million a year?
Yeah, no, I think it's between $7 and $10 million a year. That it looked like a really big contract when he first signed it, but the Chiefs have an out this year that they can just cut him with very minimal dead hits.
Right, so, and that seems like what's going to happen. Just based on the way the market is, like, it feels like receiver is a position that you can target right now if you're a team that's hungry for the position.
Yeah, absolutely, and it just depends. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like all the wide receivers now, like Paris Campbell, like it seems like he's going to command $10+ million a year. Like, how? It's just the market. It's crazy. And it's interesting how, it's interesting how wide NFL teams value the wide receiver position, because Juju Smith-Schuster can't get anything on the open market as a kind of a slot possession receiver. That's not what's valued. DJ Shark and Paris Campbell, guys who can, break a pass open deep downfield, although they're not catching passes, teams value this more because, they open up some space more for the other receivers. You got to kind of dedicate, some men
pass interference rules.
Yeah, exactly. Pass interference rules. So, guys like that, even MVS is another example. Guys like that are actually who are, aren't as productive. It's, on the stat sheet. Those guys actually command more money than Juju Smith-Schuster on the open market, which is, just interesting. But like you said about Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, I just don't know if there's an everyday role for him. Just Kadarius Toney, I like him. I like the guy a lot. He's very talented. Every play has to be schemed for him, though. Like, he does, it's not like he just runs a route and part of the offense and, Mahomes hits him downfield. Almost every play he has is like, we had to scheme Kadarius Toney open somehow, or we give him like a reverse or something like that and get him in some open space. It's just very rarely, that he's just part of the offense and catches a pass downfield. So just that he never picked up on it the whole year. Being with Kansas City so long that he never was able to work into the offense clearly when he was very much could have been needed. You know what I mean? So that's just a little concerning to me. I'm just not sure that he'll ever be, more than maybe the wide receiver 3. I think him and Sky Moore could be dueling it out for the wide receiver 3 position next year, kind of depending on how things shake out, especially if Juju Smith-Schuster comes back. And, another interesting thought, just about the backfield is very interesting as well. Jerick McKinnon will be a free agent. He had a strong stretch kind of toward the end of the year, but kind of puttered out at the end there. And that was to be expected, I think.
He finished as an RB2.
He did finish as an RB2. It was through an incredible stretch, where he's caught he had like 2 touchdowns a game for like 5-6 games there.
Yeah.
But it was going to be hard to sustain. There was, he was all receiving work. He had hardly any rushing attempts, and it was mainly touchdown driven as well. So, Isaiah Pacheco, he's very he's so fast. He's one of the best athletes. You look at his player profiler, just like 40, speed score, agility score. He's off the charts. He's an incredible athlete. Led Rutgers 3 years in rushing yards. And although their offense wasn't very, he never put up prolific stats. The offensive wasn't productive. The offensive line wasn't very good. But yeah, he was a sleeper in last year's draft. When the Chiefs selected him, I knew people who were big fans of Pacheco, and they thought he had some talent. And he's so fast. He hits that. When he hits the line of scrimmage, it already seems like he's running full speed. He runs very angry. He hits people hard. He runs with full effort. You see that every single time. Maybe vision lacks a little bit. He kind of just doesn't have any wiggle to him really. And he doesn't have great vision, so he kind of just runs into defenders, and he's not going to juke anybody out of their shoes. So,
right.
Although he had a very productive season, I just, if I'm on a dynasty team, I'm shopping him a little bit. I'm seeing what I can get to him, see if I can, add him to a deal to get a player I want, see if I can throw him into a larger deal. Just because I think, the 2023 free agent class and the rookie class is so deep. I think the Chiefs are going to add somebody in that 3rd to 5th round range. They're going to add a free agent, and it's just going to be. I think it's more of a committee next year. And the Kansas City Chiefs, they're only going to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands so many times too. So, in being in a committee and probably sharing the workload with somebody else, and Patrick Mahomes, I just don't know if he's going to be able to sustain that kind of production.
No, I don't know if that'll necessarily be the case. I like the idea of shopping him because right now his ceiling is pretty high. Excuse me. After the Super Bowl, he had a good playoff run, good performance, but that was also with Clyde Edwards-Helaire being hurt. He's going to be healthy to start next season. I don't imagine he'll be on the roster, whether he's a cap casualty. Whether
he didn't even make it to the Super Bowl parade. Oh, he was on Fashion Week.
He was what?
He was on Fashion Week in New York. He was wearing like some Armani. You know what I mean? Like he was running the runway instead of on Super Bowl parade. That's
very peculiar, man.
Yeah,
that's like one experience. Like, why would you want to miss that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's a very weird turn. Again, don't expect him back next year. I could see them going after, a not expensive veteran, maybe like a David Montgomery. Maybe like a Dame Harris via trade, something like that, just so that they can get somebody in there that's going to be able to help them a little bit more so in the red zone and give them a little bit more experience out of that backfield, which I think they've been kind of thriving, i.e. Jerick McKinnon. If he doesn't come back, I think they need some type of like veteran presence there. Jerick McKinnon was mostly playing kind of like the opposite of the Deebo Samuel situation, or a running back playing wide receiver out of the backfield. It was always super interesting how they use him. I could see him coming back because I just don't know where he's going to get a bunch of money anywhere else in the league at his age. And schematically, he's just so valuable to the Chiefs. He's not going to be more valuable than he is to any other team. So I think that he could actually be back. And they also may just try to make a kind of a low key move for a veteran, because again, this team feels like a win now type of roster, with Travis Kelce's years kind of dwindling now. I feel like they're going to want to take full advantage and, make another run at it. And given the open market right now for these types of utility positions and running back and receiver, I don't see why they won't be big buyers this offseason. So tough to say that any of these guys in that running back room will be like super impactful for our fantasy rosters next season. I am in the same camp as you, probably look to sell Pacheco before they do make some type of addition where, you're not going to get back as much of a return on him.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be a little tough to sell him right now. A lot of people are going to be a little trepidate. It's impossible to sell running backs in Dynasty anyway.
Would you take back a second-round pick for him? Would you give him up for a second-round pick?
Or an early second-round pick, I'd give him up. Especially in Superflex League, I would.
Yeah, I mean, there's typically right around this time of the year, there's a handful of teams that will have 2 or 3 second-round picks, from the trades that they've been, accumulating the past couple of seasons. So I don't think that's ridiculous to target, a running back needy team that might have an extra, first or an extra second draft pick that they might be willing to give up.
Yeah, so Kansas City Chiefs have a lot of interesting moves to make this offseason. So that'll be where I look at is probably adding a receiver or two, maybe adding somebody to take some of the workload from Pacheco as well. So we'll see. One team that is a little bit less, probably a little bit less movement this offseason is Philadelphia Eagles. Everyone's locked up. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, all under contract. Jalen Hurts is probably going to get paid. The only question mark is really, who maybe is playing at running back next year. Do you have any highlights of this Philadelphia Eagles offseason or how you think the offense is going to look next year?
It's sounding like Miles Sanders is not going to be coming back. I mean, we'll see what happens with that. That's a situation to monitor. But honestly, in all my leagues, in a fair amount of leagues, I already had Kenny Gainwell. And in those same leagues, I've also picked up, like last month, I've picked up Boston Scott, like for free in a handful of my dynasty leagues. I'm not saying that's going to be some type of fruitful return in fantasy, but if they don't prioritize the position, if they move forward with those two guys and say, another low end veteran, if they don't really attack the position in the draft, it sounds like they will try to. I still don't mind holding those two and just kind of seeing how they figure it out because they have a run first offense that goes through Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Miles Sanders had a big year, and I think that they're going to try to supplement that production. It just may not be with a sexy addition that people are looking for. It may not be Bijan Robinson. It may not be, going after a guy like David Montgomery. I'm trying to think of another big running back that could be on the move here, but nothing's coming to my head. Maybe if they move for like Cam Akers, I don't know if that's something that they would do.
Bijan Robinson's been a potential destination for him too.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned his name. But again, if you go shopping, there's always going shopping for what you want and then coming home with what you actually get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he feels like one of those situations where there could be other suitors that are more aggressive in obtaining him, because I don't think that the Eagles are going to be overly aggressive in filling the Miles Sanders role, because probably at the end of the day, they'll just tell themselves, well, we can just bring back Miles Sanders. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that could happen to us, right? We just come back and maybe, we have to divide the touches up a little bit more because maybe Sanders can't rush for another 1,200 yards in back-to-back seasons or double-digit touchdowns, which if he were to come back, I would still expect him to regress from the numbers that he put up this season. I would be wanting to sell more Miles Sanders now. I would not be a buyer of him. I would be a buyer of Kenny Gainwell on the low, because I still feel like he will have a role there next year no matter what. Now, is it going to be a big role? Not necessarily, but he will be there, and he's, I think, worth at least holding for handcuff considerations.
Yeah, he has that kind of poor man's Austin Eckler kind of type mold there. He had very poor man. But he had 50-plus targets in 2021. It was kind of a mystery why he didn't get used that last year. So maybe we'll see a little bit more of that next season.
You have had that discussion before, the curious case of Gainwell, like why 1 week they give him the ball and 1 week they don't. It's just a complete, mind fuck with him.
He had a strong playoff run, though. First couple of games there. Didn't kind of quiet against Kansas City Chiefs, but productive first two games there. So very good chance. He has a little larger workload next year, so we'll see.
He had a touchdown called back in the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, that's right, too. So, yeah, it could have even had a bigger Super Bowl, too. So, Kenneth Gainwell, a sleeper of mine, too. I'm actually have him coming out with an article tomorrow for another website, and he's running my sleeper running back candidate. So,
nice.
With that, we will dive into some Dynasty sleepers, which is a great segue. But with that, I'm just going to pay some quick bills really quick, tell you about WynnBET one more time. WynnBET is the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. WynnBET is active in a bunch of states, and there are tons of ways to win, including live betting and same-game parlays, aka WynnBET's Build Your Own Bet. Great promos, odds, and payouts are happening right now at WynnBET. Ready to play? Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet $100, get $100. Limited to state availability. And, of course, if you hit the biggest long shot parlay of the week, you get a $1,000 free credit. There's so much to choose from. All you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET so they know we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at wynnbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. And, of course, if you would leave us a review or a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast or YouTube, we would love you for that as well. Man, I'll tell you, I got this nice thing from Trophy Smack, and I'm not used to adjusting myself to like, I'm usually having a blank wall behind me, but this is, next week I'll get this thing from Trophy Shot, Smack in the Shot here. Very nice of them, very nice. SGPN, little street cred here. So next week I won't be standing in front of that, so I'll adjust myself. I wasn't used to doing that, so it's kind of awkwardly sitting behind me today. So that was bothering me the whole time, but next week I'll get it right.
I love it.
With that, we will dive into some Dynasty quarterback sleepers to start off with. And we were talking about this guy a little bit before the show. But I have Jared Goff first up here. He's capable of working to the offense around him, but people are have trepidations thinking that the Lions, of course, are going to get a quarterback of the future here at some point. But he was the quarterback 10 in fantasy last season. So he's coming off a very good year. The offensive line is very good, and we know that's where he struggles the most, is kind of behind pressure. So the Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, the offensive line is very good. Everything's set up for him to succeed. Yeah, I guess the only kind of mind that we're dealing with is that the Detroit Lions top 10 pick. Is there a chance that they decide, man, we are one step away, we just need a quarterback? So that's my one, I guess, trepidation why I'm not jumping all over Goff, is because maybe the Lions do decide to go quarterback, but that, otherwise it's full steam ahead. I think, he's a great dynasty buy low right now because, you can probably get him for like an early second round pick, maybe something like that. And, it's tough to get good quarterback production for that. So even if he only plays for another year or two as a starter in Detroit, that would be worth it to me. What do you think?
I think right now he is still a top 15 quarterback. So he finishes QB 10 this past season. I would probably put him closer to quarterback 15 or 16. And right now, if you're actually doing startups prior to the draft, February, early March, I think he is an amazing value for his current ADP. I was doing some mock drafts on Fantasy Pros, and he came off the board as quarterback 26. As a QB who just finished as QB 10 this season, that is immense value. They have him at quarterback 20 on Fantasy Pros, and it looks like, comparing him to the SGPN Dynasty rankings, they actually have him a little bit higher. We have him at QB 22, which is, a miscalculation in my opinion. Tom Brady is one spot ahead of him. Dan Jones, 2 spots. Kenny Pickett, 3 spots. Like, I like the idea of Kenny Pickett in theory, but the weapons that Goff has around him, the offense that he has around him, the offensive line that you mentioned, like, he's in a very good situation to succeed right now. Trey Lance, who we're going to be talking about, is another name ahead of him that, again, I'm just not into, given his or at least the climate or situation of the San Francisco 49ers. So I think he's a great value right now. As far as what the Lions will do with their pick, no one can really say. I don't feel that they are going to draft a quarterback after the season that they just had from Jared Goff, because like this is what they went out and traded for. You know what I mean? Like a top 10 quarterback finish, nothing to kick away. Geno Smith, a little bit older, but he's kind of in a similar situation where we've seen very good production from him in his new situation. Why would we, not take him at the discount that we're getting from him right now in startups and early ADP in the months of like February or March? So right now he's a very good value. Of course, we're going to see the boards shake up after the draft, after free agency. But I think personally, the situation probably only gets better. They may go out and get another receiver because you have DJ Shark leaving. Maybe they go out and replace him with another kind of low-end receiver that gives us a little bit more confidence, because Jameson Williams, I know we're all excited about. You can't be excited about Jameson Williams and not, have some, increment of preference towards Jared Goff. Like, I have to believe, if you believe in Jameson Williams, you should probably believe in, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, and man, if they just get DeAndre Swift going, my goodness, this offense could just be a big, big problem.
Yeah, I think it could be. They were one of the best in the league last year. I think could be even better this year, especially with Jameson Williams opening up things for everybody. They're going to have to account for his speed. So Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams could kind of help each other out in that aspect. They're both going to open up things for each other. It's going to be hard to double team either one of them. Mm-hmm. Yes, we are all hoping that DeAndre Swift gets going here. So we will see. Jared Goff was a favorite of mine last season, not necessarily in Dynasty, but I did, he was my most drafted quarterback on Underdog as a low-end quarterback too. And, he'll probably be that, one of my most drafted quarterbacks again this year is a mid-tier quarterback too, just because I think he can definitely, that's his floor, and I think he can definitely return a lot of value on that. Next up here, Trey Lance. Now, hear me out. It's just Brock Purdy was the last pick in last year's draft. He was playing with one of the most talented offenses we've probably ever seen. Trent Williams, left tackle, all these players at the skill positions, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. He never was asked to do too much. He kind of floats those passes toward the outside a little bit. He's just not somebody that I think is going to be able to hold a job through summer, not playing, coming off of a UC joint injury. You know what I mean? I just don't think he's going to walk into July and they're like, all right, come back in, the starting reps. You know what I mean? So Trey Lance is going to be practicing in shorts starting in April. And, this is a player they spent 3 first-round picks to acquire. They want this to work out. They don't want to look stupid and see that they sent 3 first-round picks for nothing. So do we think Trey Lance? I think Trey Lance is going to look good in shorts. Most people do. So I don't think he's going to get the job taken away from him at that point in July. I just don't think, despite Brock Purdy's success, I just don't think that they're going to turn back to him now. I do think Trey Lance has a short leash next year. I don't think if he struggles, I think it could go right back to Brock Purdy. However, I do, I think it's a misconception people have right now that this is Brock Purdy's job. I think we will, they're not going to announce it for a while, but my prediction would be that Trey Lance is the starter. I don't think he'll do anything to jeopardize that in the summertime. He'll be the week 1 starter. And we saw Justin Fields had, I think, the lowest passing yards per game for a quarterback with over 14 attempts. I think that's a thing. And when I was looking at the stats the other day, and we saw him finish as a QB7. I don't have everything right in front of me here, but I think QB7 missing games. So, fantasy points per game, he was a top 5 quarterback. So I just, Trey Lance, and he's playing with all of those weapons too. Trey Lance doesn't need to do very much. He can fall backwards into a top 12 quarterback if he's the starter in this offense. He doesn't have to do anything really. It'll just happen. So, big dynasty buy low for me. If I can send a low first-round pick, a low first-round pick in a super flex league for him right now, I would absolutely do that. You're looking at, especially once you get past those top 8 picks or so. So I think he's a great buy low. What do you think?
I'm not in the same camp. I'm not a big buyer of him. I would, if I'm looking to buy him, because again, if you're looking at his startup value, he's going in like rounds 14, 15, actually went ahead of Jared Goff at quarterback 21. And he's on most folks' boards between like quarterback 12 to quarterback 15 in Dynasty. It just feels a little bit too rich for me, at least from like the totality ranking perspective. There's just a lot of guys that I would feel more comfortable with at that ADP rather than what I still feel like is taking a risk on Trey Lance because he's still an unproven talent in the NFL. And albeit he has the framework, he has the criteria, he checks a lot of boxes that you're looking for out of a young prospect. But every time his opportunity has come, something's happened, whether it's been the resurgence of Jimmy Garoppolo, whether it's been his health, whether it's been his, inaccuracy or his inability to develop the deep ball. I'm in the camp of sit and wait. If you can get Trey Lance at value, awesome. But if you're drafting Trey Lance in a startup, you also need to be drafting Brock Purdy. And I think the most applicable situation to also obtain Trey Lance is if you are a Brock Purdy owner. If you are, then I am willing to spend that type of capital. I would spend that first round pick that you're talking about. If not, I would probably be looking to potentially sell a later second, potentially an early third, because then I feel like I'm actually getting value back. Like I feel like, all right, this is a win for me. Whereas if I trade a first round pick, I feel like it's a very not just risky, but it's just unilateral. Like I feel like what I could get back in the first round is just going to be just as good, if not better than the Trey Lance stock.
For me, once we get past those top 10 picks, I just did a super flex mock draft. Once we get past those first 4 quarterbacks, the top 2 running backs, and the big 3 receivers, we kind of have all an idea who that is. I think that jumps right in. So,
but
it's tough.
But
it's really
you're missing a key factor: landing spots. Because once those landing spots hits, those top 15 to 16 are probably going to be a lot more valuable.
That's absolutely true. And you know what? It might even behoove people to wait a bit more. You know what I mean? So
sure.
Yes, you're right. I think you're right. In April, I do think that even an early second round pick could get it done because rookie fever is going to hit. But yeah, I just think once we get past those tier players like Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, that's really up in the air. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
I can feel you there. But if you see Anthony Richardson go to the Ravens, after we just saw Lamar Jackson most likely is going to get franchise tagged, would that not be a situation that you'd want to get involved in?
I don't even know if I can entertain it just because I don't. Okay. There's zero chance that I will. I'm just kidding, but I just don't think there's any chance that Lamar Jackson is not going to end up back there. Especially they'll franchise tag him and they're going to get it done.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't know about a long-term deal after a franchise tag conversation. I'll tell you that.
It's really hard. They're going to franchise him again the next year. So Lamar Jackson, I just don't think is going to want to. Especially since he's a rushing quarterback coming off 3 seasons where he didn't meet expectations. I just don't think that he's going to want to chance it. You know what I mean? I think they'll work out something this year to get it done. So, I just don't know if that's likely. But Anthony Richardson, I think, him and Trey Lance right in the same boat. Will Levis, we'll throw that in there too. I would probably for a couple rookie wide receivers. But yeah, once you get to that 110 pick, that would be something I would maybe send for Trey Lance. But like you said, could end up being, those rookie picks are just going to be more and more valuable. So it would behoove people.
I don't go too much into what players say versus GMs or coaches, but George Kittle interviewed at the Super Bowl. He said it's Brock Purdy's job to lose. Just saying.
I heard it.
And he said Trey deserves his chance. Trey deserves his chance, but it's Purdy's job to lose. And most likely, it sounds like Purdy, at least from Purdy's mouth, he's targeting training camp to be back. And if he's back by training camp, that's enough time. Jimmy Garoppolo was in the same camp and he wasn't with his team at all. He was on his own field because he was getting ready to leave. You know what I mean? And then, look, Jimmy's our quarterback.
Because he had to be. I think the script is going. Trey Lance is going to be practicing with the team through OTAs. He's going to be practicing with the team in minicamp. I just don't think they're going to be like they want this to work so bad. They're not going to be like, man, right. For the 3 first-round picks I had with Brock Purdy. I just don't think. I think they're going to want to see what he has. So I will expect Trey Lance to be the starter in week 1. That's just my, not every most people I think actually most people disagree with me there. So that's just kind of maybe a hot take of mine. I just don't think that Brock Purdy showed enough to warrant being the starter through a 6-month rehab process. Now
that's fair.
So we'll see what happens. But that's my prediction. So I like Trey Lance this year. And, if he just gets on the field, I think he'll be a quarterback 1. I don't, he'd have to be terrible not to be a top 12 quarterback with all those skill players and that rushing upside.
Well, I hope he's not terrible then.
I don't have any Trey Lance in Dynasty. So I'm trying to purchase my first shares now. So we'll see if that happens.
I as well have 0. Very high cost. Been very high cost.
But I think we're getting to that buy point here. So we'll see what happens. Russell Wilson's my next man up here. Another man coming off a disastrous season. It was tough for Russell Wilson. He just was missing passes. He just did not look like the same guy. The rushing upside is about gone at this point. He still has that mobility in the pocket, but he's not adding a ton with his rushing upside to the fantasy game anymore. Obviously the question will be, was it Nathaniel Hackett? It definitely just wasn't all Nathaniel Hackett. Russell Wilson was missing players, but these are human beings too. He moved to a new city. There's a lot of strategy. You never know what's going on in people's lives, so I never heard anything, but maybe he's having some trouble adjusting to a new city,
new church,
church.
It's never easy.
Yeah, it's never easy. Obviously Nathaniel Hackett was not a great coach. It could be wheels up this year. Sean Payton is going to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Javonte Williams will be coming back healthy, hopefully early on in the season. Him and Jerry Jeudy had a lot of chemistry toward the end of last year. And Russell Wilson looked awfully fine against my Kansas City Chiefs in 2 matchups at the end of the season. Top 5 quarterback in both games. The Kansas City Chiefs defense was, Steve Spagnuolo doesn't like to start playing defense till January. So it's just every year. It's frustrating for me. But yeah, so our back when the Chiefs defense was Swiss cheese back at the end in the regular season, he toasted us. So had a couple good games at the end of last year. I think there's a lot of hope for him. All the pieces in the offense are still there. You have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy on the outside. Tim Patrick will be returning as well. So I think Russell Wilson, although I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback again. This was a guy who finished I want to say 8 or 9 straight years as a top 10 quarterback. It was 8 years. 8 years, yeah, prior to the 2021 season. So, I think could he bounce back as a top 15 quarterback? I think that's his floor. I think that's absolutely within his range of outcomes. Maybe a low end quarterback 1. How about you?
he finishes quarterback 16 the past 2 seasons. Quarterback 16, given how bad he was this year, it's pretty good. And for reference, the season prior, again, he finished as quarterback 16. So I think, yeah, you're right. That's his floor, is about QB 15, QB 16. And I expect him to move up probably closer to between, quarterback 9 through 11. Sean Payton's going to give him a nice boost in the play calling, in my opinion. I don't think that Drew Brees and Russell Wilson are like exactly similar, but I think that there are similarities in their game, the way that they pass the ball. Obviously, they're some of their height disadvantages. And I feel like Sean Payton's going to be able to leverage Russell Wilson's strengths, to really make the offense flow. I could see them making, some type of move in the offseason where they're getting maybe a bump at receiver, maybe getting a bump at running back. Honestly, I think the only thing that would prevent like a major move up the board for Russell Wilson would be if this team goes out and somehow acquires Taysom Hill. Because I got to imagine the Saints got to be close to being done with him. How much money that they would save getting rid of him. And there's only one coach in the league that's going to be super interested in Taysom Hill. That's the only thing I would be worried about, is them getting some type of gadget type of system or player
that would be too perfect.
I know.
That'd be too perfect. I would love it. I would love if Taysom Hill was just vulturing touchdowns away from Russell Wilson next year.
Yeah, it would be very entertaining, especially for the memes, Twitter, Reddit, etc. We would all have a great time with it. But yeah, I for Russell Wilson's sake, I hope
let Taysom Hill ride. There we go.
Dude, but you can see it happening, right? Like, it would not be abnormal to see the Saints cut him. And then out of nowhere, well, where's the best place for this guy? Like, who could really use him? Oh, wait, that's right. He's back.
If he brings in Taysom Hill, I'm dropping Russell Wilson like just 10 spots down my rankings just for what that says, just for what I think that says about Russell Wilson. I'm done. If Sean Payton looks at Russell Wilson in practice and is like, okay, we need Taysom Hill in here, I'm done. I'm out. I really hope that's not the case though, because I have Jerry Jeudy. He's one of my. I've always been a fan of Jerry Jeudy. I loved him coming into it as a rookie. I drafted him and I did so many. That was the COVID year, so I did so many startup drafts. It was I just was so many.
What else was there startups to do? Sleep?
Yeah. What else? Yeah. So I just drafted him in almost every dynasty league I did that year, and so obviously it hasn't been great. He had a good rookie year. People just act like this guy was just been chopped liver ever since he entered the league.
He had bad QBs his rookie year too.
Yeah, bad QB. He had some drops, which were an issue, but I think he's going to have. I think he was the wide receiver 11 in fantasy points per game since week 7. So yeah, I think wheels up for Jerry Jeudy, wheels up for Russell Wilson. Greg Dulcich is also a player I really like this year. So yeah, I think the Denver Broncos are in for a bounce back. But with that, we will dive into the running backs. First up here, I have James Cook. This is a player, that I really like. This is kind of the guys that I look, if I'm working out a big deal, like if I'm working out, nothing to do with James Cook, we're dealing some larger players, and he's somebody, I look at him on another roster. I'm like, you know what? Throw in James Cook and it's a deal. Not to say that he's a nothing asset, but, when you're talking about, dealing one of the top 10, your top 12 quarterback, one of the big dynasty running backs, something like that. He's not actually that big of a piece in the grand scheme of things. So you can kind of work in things like that, especially, like, James Cook, whatever. Yeah. Throw him in there. So, maybe a mid-second round pick as well. This guy was just a second round pick just last year. One of the most athletic running backs in the draft. I believe I have his 4.42 40-yard dash here. He was second in true yards per carry last year. First in breakaway run rate, which is runs over 10 yards and kind of the ratio of attempts to that. He kind of got this. People kind of just saw him as a receiving back, but he has the vision. He kind of has that quick cut agility like his brother does. He doesn't have the size. That's the one thing. He's never going to be a 20-plus carry a game guy in the NFL with that frame likely. But in the Buffalo Bills offense, I do think, Josh Allen is almost the RB1. I think he could be the bell cow running back of that offense because, they aren't going to be, they're kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs. They just don't use the running back that much. So do I think he could excel in a 15-plus touch per game role? Absolutely. And I think, that could end up, especially in PPR leagues, maybe top 18 running back, kind of like a more talented, even maybe Jerick McKinnon, a better running version of Jerick McKinnon, maybe with some more rushing attempts. What do you think?
I'm not out on him. I just think that he's a project. It's also a wait and see type of situation to wait and see if the Bills grab another running back, either in the draft or if they make a move for one. if things stay still, like if it's just him and Devin Singletary and, another floater like a Nyheim Hines or another veteran, I think the prospect of his season is going to be very good for this upcoming year. But if they are buyers, I would probably be a little bit more timid. And it still feels like they're going to be buyers at the position because they tried to go out and get J.D. McKissic last year. They got Nyheim Hines in the middle of the season. James Cook will have another year of experience under his belt in the NFL. But Devin Singletary is like underwhelming as he is. His per touch efficiency was actually pretty solid this season. So I feel like they would need to move on from him, if anything, maybe even get him off the roster for me to feel like really comfortable taking him where he's going, which is about round 8 right now in startups. Some guys that went after him that I would still be a little bit more interested in. That Commanders backfield right now seems a little bit more enticing with Eric Bieniemy coming over as offensive coordinator. Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson went around after him. I'm still like Jahmyr Gibbs went behind him. He's a rookie that I would potentially still look to prioritize over him getting a landing spot.
That's 100%. I would do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Your boy Isaiah Pacheco, I would actually still be a little bit more inclined to draft over him.
That's nearly back to back for me.
Okay, so there you go. But on Fantasy Pros, you're seeing them in a startup. They're separated by 3 rounds. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, they probably are pretty close to each other, but I would still lean Pacheco given his utility on the Kansas City roster, at least at this point. Like, he was a big focus for them. He was their Devin Singletary and James Cook at a lot of different points. Obviously, he was slowed up by injury here and there. He got banged up a little bit, but it was still very reliable. So yeah, to my point is, I'm just saying that there's a lot of guys behind him that I would still prioritize or look to take, or I would have the belief that they're pretty close, similar to his value. Devin Singletary went 4 rounds later. Again, they still feel a little bit closer right now. Devin Singletary definitely on a downward swing. And, as far as his career goes, he's got a guy like James Cook breathing down his neck, and they could bring somebody else in and he could be cut. But what I've seen from him, eye test wise, it's not really that dissimilar from James Cook. And if James Cook only elevates to like that Devin Singletary level of talent, where he's finishing at like RB, 22 to 25, like it may not be enough for me. But if, again, this is a wait and see situation, like it's kind of like one of these wild card situations that we're looking at with early ADP, February, March type of drafts where, yeah, if you can get him at good value, I think he's great. But right now, I think the value and the market is higher than what he should be.
Okay. That's fair. Devin Singletary did have a good year last year, but especially if you're just measuring those last final 6 weeks, James Cook really was far more efficient, especially in his opportunities, a lot higher yards per carry. Just when I look at him, I just don't see like just a receiving back. He has he has a lot better athlete than Devin Singletary. And I just don't see, I thought, I don't watch an over amount of college football. So, a lot of what I do is just kind of highlights and research, you know what I mean? I'm not watching college football games, but so, but watching James Cook this year, I didn't see a guy. I saw some talent running that ball. He has great vision. He has some of that quick twitch ability to him. So, I have him just right ahead of Isaiah Pacheco, but it is close. I have him ahead of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson personally. But I would take Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that's going to change. That'll change quick. That people just aren't familiar with the rookies yet. Right. Jahmyr Gibbs will be going well ahead of James Cook, I think, when it's all said and done. But we will see. The next guy. Oh no, never mind. The next, I'll save the exciting one for the next one. I was going to say I'm excited to ask you about this guy, but Cam Akers is actually who I have up next. He had a strong end of the year last year, top 25 running back in final 6 games. He will be 2 years removed from Achilles surgery when the season starts. It was kind of a roller coaster of a year, though. He missed 2 games being in the doghouse, was in a supplementary role at the beginning of the year, but Sean McVay just turned it over to him. Those final 6 games with Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position was like, hey, just take it away here. So Cam Akers finished strong, seemed to regain a lot of that explosion. Like almost 22, like probably every back, like 20 of the running backs this year, he's going to have to wait and see how the 2023 free agent running back and rookie class shakes out. I feel like there's probably only 10 or 12 guys. You're like, this guy locked in. Don't even worry about it. But yeah, he's kind of in that boat with everybody else. But I think if he walks in as the week 1 starter next year, you're looking at a guy with top 15 upside. You can get this guy for probably a mid-second round pick in dynasty drafts right now. In dynasty leagues. definitely a great buy low. Another guy, kind of a toss in, so if you're doing a large deal, you see Cam Akers on the roster. Yeah. Throw in Cam Akers. We'll get that deal done. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really good with his value right now. He's actually going one pick ahead of James Cook. And given the roster, I feel like he probably will be back. They haven't really been aggressive with that position since like Todd Gurley. You know what I mean? Like I could absolutely see them bringing him back, letting him ride it out, especially with Matt Stafford there. And that was kind of the plan before he actually had gotten hurt. So I could very well see them continuing to ride with him. I don't see the open market other than the draft like having options that are just insanely better than him. So I think that they either hold and ride it out with the group that they have, or they spend a draft pick and they maybe get somebody to compete with him. But I think the situation is still going to be good. Like I said, at that value, I would take Akers over Cook because I think there's a clear path for him being a more high volume running back.
Bradley is joining us as well. What's up, Bradley? He does a great podcast for SGPN as well and talking whiskey and bourbon as well. He likes Cam Akers as well. Thinks his value is slightly depressed right now. I like him a lot too. But yeah, he's a great athlete, and obviously, he can handle a lot, probably a bigger workload than James Cook just because of the frame that Cam Akers has. He's a big guy.
Right.
So yeah, I really like Cam Akers. I think he's a great buy this year. I'd be shopping around for a mid-second. I'd be willing to spend on him. And he is probably, I think he's just going to be just turned 24 years old when the season starts. So
right,
very young running back.
He's 23 right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So next up, I am excited to ask you about this guy, Khalil Herbert. He had he's coming off his, pretty impressive sophomore season, 732 rushing yards, 5 yards per carry, 7th in evaded tackles per touch. He had a streak of 6 weeks where he was a top 26 running back, 5 out of those 6 weeks before suffering a hip injury in week 10. Kind of hampered his season, didn't really get back going after that, but the offense was kind of lost at that point anyway. So David Montgomery's a free agent. What do you think about Khalil Herbert's chance? Like I said, rookie running back, we could say this about every single guy. It's going to be dependent on how, what Chicago Bears also do at running back. But do you think the Bears will be comfortable rolling with him as the lead guy next year?
I think they would be okay with it, but I don't think it's their preference. During the season, I felt like the move to make was to, I know people will call me crazy, but re-sign Roquan Smith and let go of David Montgomery. It sounds like they're going to be doing the opposite. They've already obviously moved Roquan Smith to the Ravens. He signed a big contract there. And based off of what the Bears have in cap right now, and given the running back market, it feels like he's probably coming back. It doesn't seem like the Bears are taking Bijan Robinson with the first overall pick. By all means, I wouldn't hate it as a Bears fan, but it seems like that. What's this?
I would hate it. I would hate it if I.
Well, I'm sure you do. I mean, I don't think that the Dynasty community would love it very much, but I don't see them using that pick on Bijan Robinson unless they're like really playing this one close to the chest and they're trying to make everybody think that they're going shopping.
Please don't take a running back with the first pick. Please don't do that.
Hey, buddy, I don't want it. I want them to go shopping. I want them to get a Trey Lance deal. I want 3 first-round picks for that first-round pick. You know what I'm saying? Like I want a big gathering of picks for that pick. But it doesn't feel like that's going to be the case. Of course, they could throw us a curveball and do something like that, but I don't believe that that's a high percentage play or opportunity to happen, whatever. I think that they're going to bring back Montgomery. I don't think that's a bad thing for Khalil Herbert. He obviously was able to still thrive with him there. I just feel like we're probably going to be waiting for an injury to take place, and you still have Justin Fields, who's now emerged as, that run first quarterback. All this being said, Khalil Herbert in round 10 is not a bad value. I don't think that that's a bad spot to grab him at running back 35 off the board. I feel like with the potential upside that you're getting there, I don't feel like you're exposing yourself to like a ton of risk. I feel like it's kind of an appropriate ADP at this time. As more details come in, I very well could see him moving up the board or potentially even falling down the board. I feel like he's going to be a good value regardless, because if he's moving up, that means that things are, pointing in a good direction for him where he should be either the lead guy or at least, have a, high inclusion in the offense. But again, I still see David Montgomery, at least right now, the way the market's playing out, how much cap we have, it shouldn't be very difficult to bring him back on a contract that will honestly probably be friendly to Montgomery, just given off of how much cap that we have. It's essentially the Bears are going to go shopping for Saquon Barkley. It's either they get him or they probably come back with David Montgomery. I think those.
You guys need to be following. Okay, you guys need to be following the classic strategy of team building here, and not spending on the running back position. You need to be spending on everything else but the running back position. That's not always
spend whatever we want on whatever we want. We have so much cap.
You do,
and the cap is going up. Like, we can do whatever we want.
I would be spending on. You know what? Okay, the 4D chess move, in my opinion, is to trade Justin Fields. Here's the thing. I would want to trade Justin Fields, Bryce Young, or CJ Stroud. Pick your favorite. Yes. That's the best move.
Listen, start all over is what you're asking us to do. If that's the case, then start all over.
You don't need to. You don't need to start all over. You see, here's the thing. You already set Justin. Like, this year's not going to be your year. Like you guys are going to improve this year, but this year's not going to be
our year. Emerson.
So that's 3 years of Justin Fields' rookie contract you've already used up. Start fresh with a rookie quarterback this year. And next offseason, you're going to be looking at 3 or 4 more years of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud under a rookie contract, and then you're going to be ready to roll. And I just, I question.
We are ready to roll right now.
I love Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts for fantasy. Sometimes it's harder to run that kind of offense, though, for a long period of time, sustained success. We've seen it, but it's just the way the NFL is moving. I also, if I can switch, if I can sell a rushing dual threat quarterback high for in a passing league, I also would consider that. But we could see that kind of change.
It is a passing league, but look at the passing targets that Justin Fields has had.
That's true.
Come on. Like, they make a move on a big name, someone that they can bring in that, God bless, can be healthy and can, play a full season. Like, dude, like this team could absolutely change right around, whether it be via the draft with a haul of picks for that first pick. Like, I don't know. I've heard the arguments for getting Fields off the roster, and I just feel like I don't know. I don't want to use too many, negative adjectives, but I think it's just absolutely batshit. Like, I don't know. I don't know what, like. So did you think that Jalen Hurts should have been traded last season? They should have moved on from him? Like,
he couldn't get the value. I don't think that Justin Fields could command this offseason. Last offseason.
I don't know, man. I mean, this team's a couple of pieces away from Fields just finished as a quarterback 1 this season, given all of this. Why would we assume that he is just going to immediately regress? Like, why is he just going to get better or worse?
Not regress. I just don't know if we just don't know if he's a NFL caliber passer yet. And he could be. He had horrible wide receivers last year, but like I said, he was dead last in passing yards per game for a quarterback with over 14 passing attempts for the whole season.
I think the most perfect one is the drop, Aquamius St. Brown against the Dolphins. I think that's about on par. Like, just one play that can surmise the entirety of the season and the situation. There's a lot of moments like that this season, like Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney, Aquamius St. Brown. They traded for Chase Claypool. Like,
Brian Pringle.
Who's the best player of that group?
Brian Pringle.
Brian
Pringle. Yes.
Stop. Exactly. But that's you're like almost feeding my argument here. Like, there's no names, there's no talent at these other positions other than David Montgomery and some flashes that we saw from Khalil Herbert with how this conversation started.
That's how this conversation started. Yes. Khalil Herbert is a sleeper candidate of mine. I do think I hope the Bears decide to spend their money in other directions to help out Justin Fields. Like I said, if I would consider trading Justin Fields for a first round pick,
they're gonna trade for why is his name not coming to me? What's Travis Kelce's brother's name?
Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce. We're gonna go get Jason Kelce, and we're gonna turn this thing around, buddy. We're getting a Kelce, and that is your ticket to the Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you that would be fun. Jason Kelce on the Chicago Bears would be fun.
Well, yeah, they're going to build up. They're going to build up the offensive line. They're going to get themselves a couple of reliable receivers. Whatever happens with the running backs happens with the running backs, and we're going to the Super Bowl, baby.
Justin Fields. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I personally think Justin Fields, of course, is going to be on your roster next year, and you guys have all the cap space in the world. I like the Bears the next season. I just think
he is
getting aggressive with it.
He is him.
I love it. We'll see what happens. Definitely a Jalen Hurts-esque rise could be in store for Justin Fields next season. So we'll see what happens. The next player, we'll dive into the wide receivers now, though. Who's my first man up I have here? I have Rashad Bateman as my first player up. Yeah, another great dynasty buy low. This is a guy with first-round draft capital. He was very productive in his first couple games last year. I think he had about 170, 180 receiving yards and a pair of touchdowns in his first 2 games last year. Hampered, I believe he suffered that Liz Frank injury in practice, kind of hampered him for a couple weeks, tried to get back on it, and just never was able to. Lamar Jackson only threw 7 touchdowns the remainder of the season after week 3, when kind of Rashad Bateman's final season. So it just cratered after Rashad Bateman left. There was nobody on the perimeter. Teams didn't have to respect anybody on the outside. We're just going to take away from Mark Andrews. Good luck, Lamar Jackson. So the offense really struggled. The Ravens do not spend. They could change this offseason, but history tells us they do not go out and get high-profile wide receivers or anything like that. So Rashad Bateman, I do think they'll make an addition, but Rashad Bateman is at worst going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense next year. And he, I think, probably maybe looking at being the wide receiver 1 again. And if that's the case, and Lamar Jackson is back in the offense, I think this guy does have top 20 as wide receiver. And, I saw on, I don't know his dynasty ADP right off the top of my head on Fantasy Pros, but for example, I do on Underdog, wide receiver 42. I can't imagine that's much a big value. I can't imagine that he's higher than the wide receiver 30, 35 in dynasty leagues at the moment.
He is.
And what was that?
Wide receiver 30 is where he's coming off the board.
Okay.
Wide receiver 33 is where he's ranked. That's a little too rich for me still, because that's putting him in about round 6 of a startup. I'm just going to run through some of the names that are being drafted around him at the receiver position. George Pickens, Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Jahan Dotson, Amari Cooper, Jameson Williams, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Elijah Moore too, but I would have Bateman over him. Most of these guys I would still probably have over Bateman, especially in a startup, especially this early in the draft. I think we had the conversation about Lamar already. It feels like they're going to tag him. He'll probably be back with the Ravens, but they also probably make another move. Like I could see them making like that Paris Campbell move. I could see them making a signing of maybe like an Alan Lazard. I could see them making a move for a Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks also another trade option for another name that we're going to be talking about here soon. But yeah, I don't know if the situation right now just has enough clarity to where I would spend that early of a pick on him. If we're talking about rounds 8 or 9 in a startup, I'm going to feel a little bit better. That's out of a 20-round super flex league. I would feel a little bit better drafting him amongst the likes of like Chase Claypool, Rondell Moore, Jacoby Myers. Tyler Lockett is going in round 9. I would certainly take Tyler Lockett still over Rashad Bateman at this point, even at his age. Josh Palmer in round 10, I really like a lot this year. There's just a lot of other names where I feel like I'm getting a little bit more consistency out of either their career or there's a little bit more clarity in their situation. So I like them. I don't love them. When he was hurt last year, I traded him for Donta Foreman down the stretch. I had a range of injuries at running back. I was really hurting. I took Donta Foreman. I wound up going to the championship, so it wasn't all for nothing. Donta Foreman didn't really do much for me in the fantasy playoffs, but it was enough to get me there. So love him. Sorry, don't love him, but don't hate him. Okay,
that's fair. I just think that I love first round draft profiles. This guy was a first round pick just a couple years ago.
Yep.
Had injuries his first season. He didn't get on the field till week 7 or so. Hampered all last season too. So I just don't think he's really gotten a chance to show us what he can do yet. So it's especially if he's the wide receiver 1 next year, it's wheels up for me. I'm sure that ranking will rise a little bit if the Ravens don't add anybody.
1,000%.
But even in the wide receiver 2 role, I don't think that's terrible either. He could still definitely return on his ADP. So we will see. He'd be somebody I'd be shopping, maybe sending out an early 2nd round pick for, especially maybe in a super flex league, and see what would happen. Next man up I have here is Deontay Johnson. Now, he hardly fits the sleeper category for me, but I just had to bring him in here because, he's 6th in targets last year. And it's just kind of crazy to see him, as the wide receiver 38 on those Underdog best ball drafts. And, kind of an afterthought, even in dynasty leagues at the moment. Kind of people are hot on George Pickens. George Pickens is better at, he certainly higher ADOT, catches those big passes downfield, more of a physically imposing presence. Mm-hmm. But just with Kenny Pickett, Kenny Pickett is not an elite passer. I didn't see anything in his rookie season to suggest that he's going to be a prolific passer in the future. So how many consistent fantasy targets is this guy going to produce? And, I mean, a lot, it's probably going to be 1 or 2 at the most. So I think Deontay Johnson is just such a safe target. You know what I mean? Kenny Pickett's not going to be he made some good throws last season downfield, but he's not going to typically be a deep downfield thrower. So we're going to see a lot of checking down, some short throws. And I think Deontay Johnson excels in that area. Not a particularly high ADOT, but he was 6th in targets last year. 5th, I believe he's 5th or 6th in targets over the last 3 seasons. He's just been a target cog these last few years. So yeah, I think he's going to have a definitely return on his ADP, and a nice early 2nd round pick. It would probably cost you in a dynasty league at the moment for the right buyer, especially in a super flex league where you have a few quarterbacks going in the 1st round. But yeah, I just think George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth are going to be. This is going to be a run first offense first of all, and then you have George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. I think are going to be more secondary options, boom and bust, where Deontay Johnson is going to be a little bit more consistent. He was the wide receiver 30 last year, didn't catch a single touchdown pass. I think that'll change. So I think this is a very low risk. We're going to, he's a lock to return on his ADP at the moment.
He's going to exceed his ADP right now for certain. I expect his ADP to go up, but I couldn't agree with you anymore. Pickett and Deontay are going to grow. They're going to build on year 1. They will get better. Not saying that Deontay Johnson's ADOT's just going to scream up the board, but I do think that we see it go up a bit. He's going to find pay dirt this upcoming season for sure. We just saw Miles Sanders go from 1 rushing touchdown or 0 rushing touchdowns to 11. We can see that turnaround happen, and I think we're going to see it with DJ this upcoming year. I would probably gather somewhere between 5 and 6 receiving touchdowns, probably with a similar target share. And right now where you're getting him a couple of picks before Rashad Bateman. He went off the board in this last mock at wide receiver 27. Bateman went at wide receiver 30. You can't tell me you would take Bateman over DJ. No, exactly. Right. And they're going 4 picks away from each other. Oddly enough, DJ and Pickens went back to back the first 2 picks of the 6th round. It's the only time I've ever actually seen DJ drafted over Pickens so far this offseason, because I, like you, have been doing a lot of underdog drafts where he's going in, again, round 6 or 7 in a 20-round draft. And that's just best ball, right? So, you're just literally getting the best weeks out of them. So there's tons of opportunity there. There's tons of opportunity to grab them right now at a friendly ADP off the board in any startups happening prior to the draft. I offered, may not be as fair, but I offered Zay Jones and DJ Chark for him in hopes that someone might be lower on him. I don't know if that one's going to come through, but I'm trying to, start the negotiations, as we say.
Oh man, good luck getting that one done. We'll see.
The guy's hungry for receivers, so hopefully he's low on Deontay. Somehow the market is not high on him right now, so that I'm not sending an offer that behooves the market.
It's always tough to see, especially to feel, it's always tough, especially to feel like what's a fair trade. You know what I mean? I look back at some trades.
I'll post it on Twitter. I ain't scared. Come at me. Yeah, you're right. I want to trade these 2 less than great players for a great player. No shit.
I always that's one that I'm usually I click on it. I'm like, I'm not even responding. Reject.
Well, see, if you're interested in moving DJ, then you'll respond. If you won't, then then you won't. Then you're not obviously interested in moving him.
We'll see. Deontay Johnson is not somebody I'm holding in all my dynasty leagues. And I'll be even trying to, like I said, buy him maybe for an early 2nd round pick. The last we have 2 more wide receivers. Next up, I have Donovan Peoples-Jones.
DPJ.
Coming off a very strong season. I believe, what was it? He had
his best finish so far.
Yeah, 839 yards and 3 touchdowns. Number two wide receiver in the offense. Just didn't get really talked about much besides having a very good year. I expect this offense to be much better this year. Deshaun Watson with an off season to fully focus on football probably this year. I just think it's hard for me to think that he just lost it in those years. I think he's very talented, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So he's dependent on what the Cleveland Browns do at the wide receiver position. Are they going to make a trade? Are they going to draft a wide receiver? David Bell is another, does he take a step forward in the offense?
Right.
However, I think he is the lead candidate for the 2nd wide receiver position at the moment. This is going to be a much better offense. Deshaun Watson's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I think he could kind of maybe fill like a Will Fuller type role. He's not quite the downfield threat, but he does have, he has a very high yards per catch his first 2 years in the league. That kind of changed a little bit last year with the offense. But, yeah, I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones could definitely return on his ADP. This is somebody you can probably, especially, it's kind of hard to work him into a single, so it's these kind of sleeper candidates. Sometimes it's hard to work into a single trade. But, yeah, if you see Donovan Peoples-Jones on your roster and you already have a deal that you already have in place that you're going to accept, yeah, be like, hey, we got a deal if you throw in Donovan Peoples-Jones. But as we get to the draft, this is a guy when you're on the clock and with a 3-2 or 3-3, somebody's going to have somebody that they love at that pick, and they'll be like, I'll take Donovan Peoples-Jones, and they'll be like, okay, perfect. You know what I mean? So definitely a good buy low there. How do you think his 23 outlook looks?
I think this season, starting from like OTAs through week 1, it's going to go woo, 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 up and down, just because I feel like they'll probably make a move in the draft that'll make us go, should we prioritize or deprioritize DPJ? Does this improve or not improve his position? Then they could also make a move in the offseason. I like guys like a Brandon Cooks or an Allen Lazard potentially going there. Okay, is this going to make his situation better or worse? Oh, look, they go through an injury. Is this going to make his situation better or worse? Amari Cooper isn't the cleanest bill of health for receivers in years past. So I feel like it's going to be an up and down value, evaluation from him from now until week 1. Right now, he's coming off the board round 11, wide receiver 59. I think that's very good. No matter what whatever situation unfolds, I think that's a very good spot to get him based off of the season that he did have, based off of his roster utility today. I think that's more than an equitable place to pick him up. And if you do wind up drafting him ahead of that, it's probably because there have been good indicators to show that, his value is either rising or his position on the team is a little bit more concrete. I see them most likely letting Kareem Hunt walk, and they probably, sign a receiver of some sort. Not a high profile name, but a body for sure. I think that they'll ride forward with Nick Chubb and Dearness Johnson and grab a receiver.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we'll see. He'll kind of be on that wide receiver 2 borderline. He'll probably be competing with somebody to be the wide receiver 2, but I feel like that's kind of baked into that wide receiver 59 price tag. So good.
Yeah. There's no risk at where he's at right now, and comparing that to like a trade offer, I think you could get it done with round 3 or later. It just depends on how many rounds your drafts are, really.
I'm very interested to see who you have, where this next guy ranks. Where does Michael Gallup rank in those dynasty rankings?
Higher than DPJ. Okay. Round 10, wide receiver 50. No thanks. Sorry, no thanks.
I like him there still. It's tough, but I think that's still a decent value there, especially if he's the second wide receiver in this offense next year. We'll see.
Big question mark there, buddy. Big question mark there.
I don't know if we can take anything away from his last season. He was at an injury.
What season can you take away from? He's been wide receiver 66, 77, 38. His highest season is wide receiver 22 in 2019.
He did have 2,000 yards between that 2019 and 2020 season there. Nice little stretch, kind of an injury shortened, wasn't overly productive in 2021. And obviously last year he just wasn't fully healthy. So, I don't know if we can take away much from last season. And I think, with Dalton Schultz not being there, this is another guy just like what is his role? If the Dallas Cowboys get DeAndre Hopkins, okay, yeah, Michael Gallup is, he's not going to have much of a role, but this is a guy who has the talent and skill set to be that wide receiver 2 in the offense with CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott's still a very good quarterback. So, he could have a very big role. I think, he's a candidate to hit 1,000, be that 800 to 1,000 yard wide receiver next year. Like I said, it's just, with a lot of these guys we're talking about today, it's impossible to tell what these teams are going to do at their position and kind of what their targets are going to be. But just like Donovan Peoples-Jones, the way it stands right now, he's in line for a very large workload next season, and it's a big value.
Yeah, Michael Gallup to me is closer to a cap casualty than he is a candidate for 800 plus receiving yards this season. I'm gonna try and pull it up now. Dallas Cowboys cap hits, but he feels like he would be more inclined to be off the roster than anything. Let me see here. He's up there for sure. And CeeDee Lamb is still higher. Nope, Michael Gallup is higher. $13 million per year. That's a lot.
What's the dead cap hit?
19? Was it 19? Hang on. No. Dead money and cap. $5 million.
So I mean,
5.1.
I don't think they'll cut him to save $5 million or to save $8 million, just considering where the wide receiver market is. I was telling you, like Paris Campbell is going to get $10+ million. Just guys like that.
This is Jerry's world we're talking about right now. DeAndre Hopkins is available. Michael Thomas will be available. Keenan Allen could be a cap casualty. You can't tell me that Jerry's world isn't taking a look at those guys ahead of Michael Gallup for $8 million.
It could happen. Like I said, I just don't know if they have. I'd have to look at the Dallas Cowboys cap situation. It, like, off the top of my head, when I think about their roster, I don't think they'll be swimming in money this offseason. I could be wrong about that.
So he's the 6th highest paid Cowboy. The guy ahead of him, number 5, is restructuring his contract, Zeke Elliott. So I would expect either the same situation to happen, where they either restructure or he's a cap casualty. There's no way that he can continue to make the same amount of money with what he did last season, even after the injury, because he came back and they had all this confidence in him. Like, it's just not a great situation. And again, with how open the market is, $8 million, I feel like can be spent much better elsewhere around the league.
If Michael Gallup does end up leaving, I think I might even like him more, just because I think, he's going to sign like an MVS type contract, like last year. He's going to end up being, he's going to walk into probably somewhere. Somebody's going to want to pay him to be the wide receiver 2 or 3 in the offense, to always be on the field. The Chiefs could be a candidate to replace MVS with him. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't be a bad idea at all. So I think he has upside. I know he has. We've seen the talent. He has 1,000-yard receiving under a year underneath his belt. I do, like I said, I don't think wide receiver 50 is too. It's almost him and Donovan Peoples-Jones are right beside each other. Maybe,
But who would you rather take? Who would you take, DPJ or Gallup? I'd take DPJ. I don't have to think about that.
Slightly take DPJ, but that's more to do with, I think DPJ should be higher in the rankings than I think Michael Gallup should be too much lower.
I think they should probably be in a similar range. Gallup's about probably 10 to 12 spots higher than what I think he should be.
We'll see. I think Gallup is just somebody whose name, especially on Underdog. I think on Underdog he's like the wide receiver 60 something.
That makes more sense to me. Yeah, but again, that's also in a season long.
Yeah, of course, season long league, of course. But yeah, he's just someone. Yeah, who in those Underdog drafts and best ball. Yeah, I'm just like, yep, click. When his name pops up on the list. So I really like the potential there. We'll see if he is back in Dallas, though. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have to add significant weapons at receiver, though, if he doesn't, because Dalton Schultz might not be back. And then after that, the Dallas Cowboys just didn't have anybody. Who Noah Brown was the guy who they were playing last year.
Dak really liked Noah Brown. That's like a Noah Brown is something.
Noah Brown,
I guess, but so like Kevontae Turbin didn't happen, right?
No.
Who was the other one? Don't tell me. There's another one.
No, we're missing the guy who everyone was on last year. What is his name? Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah, Jalen Tolbert. Everyone was on Jalen Tolbert. That's exactly who it was. You didn't let me think of it. That's okay. Yeah, I mean, any one of those guys could be the next guy up. But Noah Brown, he played much better than Jalen Tolbert. He was much better than Kevontae Turbin. Like, I'm not saying again like he could be the guy, but I could see him in a Michael Gallup type of role, and we actually saw that at certain times. Again, out of necessity, you're right, but out of this group of young prospects that they have, he obviously rose to the top. He outplayed Tolbert enough to stay on the field more than him when he was healthy. I know Tolbert did have an injury at one point.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm glad we got some disagreement. We had some consensus ones. We got some disagreement. It was good. I had some tight end, with us running low on time here, I'm gonna skip the tight ends. No tight end is ever a dynasty buy. Okay, tight ends are always dynasty sells.
I like the names that you put on here. I like Njoku and McBride both. I think they're both great buy candidates.
We'll tell the people. I had David Njoku and Trey McBride scripted up, but I'll just tell you, David Njoku, the only guy who can compete with Saquon Barkley in a wet t-shirt contest. Shirt stripping off. David Njoku, Saquon Barkley. You don't want to be standing next to those guys. Lead athlete, big contract. Trey McBride, second-round pick. Zach Ertz coming off an ACL injury at 33 years old. Those are two situations I'm part of. Absolutely.
Love them.
Justin, what are you working on this week?
Anything and everything. I'm doing Underdog. I'm doing Dynasty trading. I'm doing some editing. Me and Andrew will be on talking part 2 of our wide receiver discussion on Underdog. talking some ADPs, talking some, do not draft, some must owns. So yeah, tune in, follow along, go smash the like button on YouTube. Follow us at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. We've got all the good stuff for you.
Yep, and we will kiss your face if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Just that's a real thing. I will come if you come to my house. I will kiss your face.
I just think you're a coward if you don't leave us a review. I mean, like, what are you doing? You spend all this time just listening, and now you can't, leave a review.
And you're going to get absolutely roasted by Justin Bruni, apparently.
Just saying.
I love it. Thanks for joining me today, man. I appreciate you on this first Sunday without football, on this long off season without football. So we are just getting started here. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining us.